we are to bring every thought into captivity to the obedience of God. This is the last part of verse 5. We are to bring every thought into captivity into the obedience of Christ. This is our measure of victory. This is our challenge. Now, this does apply to all of us. We all are to bring every thought into captivity into the obedience of Christ. What is it talking about? The obedience of Christ, our thoughts. That says a lot. This word that Paul uses for thought is only used 6 times in all of the Bible. Only used 6 times. 5 of those times is in this chapter. Actually, 5 of those times is in this book of 2 Corinthians. 5 out of 6. And all 5 of those times that this word for thought is mentioned, it's referring to the activities of Satan. Now, this is a theme here. That Satan himself, based upon his activity, he's behind the scenes creating these thoughts in your head. He's behind the scenes constructing these strongholds that exalts your thinking above God's word. Because he knows that as a man thinketh, so is he. You heard the term, you are what you eat. I mean, to a certain degree, and that may be true. But the word tells us in Proverbs 23, verse 7, it says, as a man thinketh, so is he. So in actuality, you are what you think. You are what you think. Because what you think generates your actions. Your actions generate your character. You are what you think. Satan knows that. Our enemy understands that. That's why it's so important for him to be able to capture your thinking, so he can control and mold you into being who you are based upon your thinking. We got a problem here. There is a problem that we have today in the church. And that problem is found in the following verses of Ezekiel chapter 33. It says, this is God talking to Ezekiel. He says, the children of your people are talking about you besides the walls and in the doors of the houses. They speak to one another, saying to his brother. It says, please come and hear what the word is that comes from the Lord. So they come to you as people do. They sit before you as my people, and they hear your words. They don't do them. This is the problem. Throughout the church as a whole, throughout the world, it says that the people come, they sit before you as my people, they enjoy every word that you say, they are on board, they hear it, they don't do what you say. They don't do what you say. It says, with their mouths they show much love, but their hearts pursue their own gain. Indeed, you are to them a very lovely song of one who has a pleasant voice and can play well on an instrument. But they hear your words, but they don't do them. And when this comes to pass, and it says, surely it will come to pass, they will know that a prophet has gone amongst them. I don't consider myself a prophet by no stretch of imagination, but I do consider myself a messenger, as if God himself was making his plea through me. And you are the same. When you preach the gospel, when you teach the gospel, it is as if God himself is making his plea through you. But there's a problem. They don't do it. In James chapter 1, verses 22 through 25, it says, don't just listen to God's word. You must do what it says. Otherwise, you're fooling yourselves. If you just listen and you don't do what it says, you're kidding yourself. You're just fooling yourself. But we know who's behind this. We know who is trying to get you not to do it. We know who's trying to deceive you and fool you, don't we? We talked about it. This is a tactic of the enemy to get you not to do it. To create these reasonings and this logic in your mind that tells you that you don't really have to do it. And remember what happened to Eve? What he told Eve? You won't surely die. And what happened? This is what he's telling us, all of us. It says, for if you listen to the word and don't obey, it's like glancing at your face in the mirror. You see yourself, walk away, and forget what you look like. It says, but if you look carefully into the perfect law that sets you free, and if you do what it says and don't forget what you heard, then God will bless you for doing it. It says, if you look carefully into the law, if you look intently into the law, and if you do it and don't forget, then there's a blessing for you. In the New King James, it says that this one will be blessed by God. This one. You want a blessing from God? Do we want to be blessed by God? It says this one who listens and does will be blessed. So if it took the time to say that this one will be blessed by God, then what's the opposite of that? If you don't? Huh? I mean, this is what it says. This is the insidious nature of the enemy's attacks. And again, insidious means hidden. Insidious means that it's unknown, but very deadly. He is hidden. He comes in stealth, but he's very deadly. His attacks has disastrous results. Again, it's like radiation. We can't smell it. We can't taste it. We can't feel it, but it'll eat you alive. Over time, it will eat you alive. It doesn't happen automatically, does it? No. You can walk through a radiation and don't even know it. Don't even know you're affected. For days, weeks maybe. But in the end, it will eat you alive. And this is what Satan's trying to do. He's trying to come undetected. He's trying to not be seen. He doesn't want to be heard. He's insidious. But his intent is disastrous. His intent is to separate you from God's word. And not just separate you from God's word. His intent is to spend eternity with you. He wants some company where he's going. That's his intent. That's his goal. That's his objective. And he doesn't want you to know about it. He doesn't want you to know when he's working in your life. He wants to keep it undercover until it's too late. Now, I don't want you to confuse that I'm talking about salvation by works. I don't want to confuse you into thinking that I'm talking about you have to earn your way to God's kingdom. That's not what I'm talking about here. Because we all know that our salvation is based upon our faith alone, and what he did for us. But what I'm referring to in this study is a natural response to us loving him. I'm referring to a natural occurrence to us loving him. In other words, our obedience is not to be based upon our admittance into heaven. Our obedience should not be based upon, put it this way, we should not be obedient because we're trying to enter into heaven. We should be obedient simply because we love him. For no reason than that alone. We're not to be obedient to prove that we've earned our way. It's just as natural can be, our obedience. You think I'm lying? It says in James chapter 2, verse 18, it says that I will show you my faith by what I do. This is when it says faith without works is dead. And James is saying, I will show you my faith. My faith is evident by the things I do. So, why is it so important that we are obedient to his word? Why is it necessary that we actually do what God's word says we are to do? Because, trust me, it is extremely important. It is of the utmost that we do exactly what God's word says. This is not optional. This is not something that we can take it or leave it. It's critical that we are obedient to his word. And Satan knows this. This is why he tries to keep us from being obedient to his word. Let me show you, let me read you a couple of scriptures. In John chapter 15, verse 14, Jesus himself says, you are my friends if you do whatever I command. He says, you are my friends if you do whatever I command. He says in John chapter 14, verse 15, it says that if you love me, you will obey my commands. If you love me, you will obey my commands. In John 14, verses 21, 23 through 24, it says, he who has my commandments and keeps them is he who loves me. And he who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I will love him and manifest myself to him. Jesus says, if anyone loves me, he will keep my word. And again he says, my Father will love him, and we will come to him and make our home with him. He who does not love me and does not keep my word, and the word which you heard is not mine, but my Father's who sent me. Jesus is saying that if you love me, then you will obey my commands. In addition to that, he says, if you love me and obey my commands, me and my Father are going to come to you. And we're going to make our home with you. And we're going to spend some time with you. But what happens if you don't obey his commands? Chances are, no, not chances are, you are deceiving yourselves. You see how critical this is? You are deceiving yourselves. You can tell yourself all you want to, and you can convince others, I love Jesus, you know? But if you don't obey his command, then you are deceiving yourself, you know? I didn't say this. This is what Jesus says. I'm not making this up. This is not my philosophy into tricking you into being obedient.